this video, we're going to take a look at using the form designer to manage the details section on a request form. So the first thing we need to have is the form designer role assigned to our user. Once they have that role, they will see the option to go into design mode on the request form. And in doing so, it will show the existing default fields for that particular form and also provide the option to add additional fields if required. Looking at the existing default fields first, here we can see that we've got options to go in and edit the attributes or parameters for each of those fields. On this particular external reference number field, I've got the options to make choices like a value must always be provided when the form is being filled for that particular field, or whether that field will be visible even if there's no value entered into that field. We can come down and make choices like editing the label or display value for that particular field, and we can, if required, come in and also require some validation on the value that's being put into that field. Here we could do things like ensuring that its length is not above or below a particular length, or we could have attributes such as the format of the value must be, in this example, 2 letters followed by 4 numbers. So if we go ahead and apply that validation here, we can then test to make sure that's being enforced. So if I go ahead and put my 2 letters in and 4 numbers, we can see that that would have passed the test. And if we come back and change one of those values, then we can see that it would fail. What we can also do is put in a message or some information to help the user understand what value is expected here. Must be 2 letters followed by 4 numbers. And we can go ahead and apply that. What we can also do here is move fields up and down by simply dragging and dropping them into the required position in that particular form. So here we can see we've moved the external reference number up. If we wanted then to go ahead and add additional fields to this particular form, we can go in using the plus button and we can choose from the available custom fields for that particular form. Here we can see custom fields down, and we can see ones where their type is defined, so the field will have to be an integer or a date time as opposed to a varchar or a text type field. If we select on, for example, date time here, we can give that field a new display name, but we can also see here that the options are limited in terms of the inputs. And again, if we chose an integer here, then the input control type is limited. However, if we go back up to something like just a varchar here, like field F, we can see that our options for the type of field have been extended. So I might come in here and call this field impact, and then go ahead and say, well, actually I want to either have a single or multi-line text field. I might want to make it a date time, or I might want to make it a checkbox or radio controlled or drop down options. So I'm going to use the radio option here, and I'm going to go and apply that. If we then come and have a look at where that field's been added at the bottom, again we can come in and we can edit its attributes. So we've got the same options at the top, but below this we might want to actually provide the values then that are available for this radio control that we've chosen, and we can do that by either selecting an existing list that exists based on the application, in this case looking at both simple lists that already exist in the application or lists that might have been added by another user. Alternatively, we can go ahead and create our own list here. So I might call this, let's call this one incident impact on here, and then we can go ahead and provide some values for that. So in here we might just call it one user, and display value, save that one in. We might then want to go and add a second one of multiple users. In here, save that in, and finally, let's call this all users. And again, we can save that in. Once we're happy with the values that are in that control, we can go ahead and apply. In the same way, then we can then go and move the field into the required position, and once we're happy with our changes, we can apply those changes. Now, once those changes have been applied, we can come into the design section. We can see here now the external reference number field is showing even though there's no value, but the impact one is not showing because we didn't mark that in our configuration. However, if we now go into edit mode, we can see that the external reference number is there. And if we go ahead and try and put a value in that doesn't conform with the validation we've got, we're going to see the error message. However, if we now come back in and we do conform, that message goes away, and we can see our choices that are available for the impact radio control that we've added. One final point that's worth noting here is that the changes that we're making to that request form are applicable to the request type, so in this case incident, and for any requests that have been raised against that particular service. So what we're effectively doing here is we're editing the request details form for that service and that request type. Now we can do this from within the request as we are here, or if we drill down into the actual service itself, we could have made the same changes through the request configuration tab under the relevant request type, using the view details form and going into a design mode that way. Whichever way you make those changes will apply to any requests that have been raised against that service and that particular request type. Thanks for watching.